Welcome to our deep dive today, and we're going to be exploring the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah, it's a story that has captivated people for centuries, you know?
It really has. I find it just so
Yeah.
fascinating. There's love, loss, and just how far we'll go for those we love.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And how can we forget the music? It's woven throughout the entire story.
the music is key, right? So let's start with Orpheus. He's not just any musician. He has this incredible lineage,
Yeah, he's the son of Apollo.
the god of music and poetry.
Exactly. And Calliope, the muse of epic poetry.
So we're not talking about just some heartbroken musician here, right?
Right. His background is key. Orpheus isn't just talented. His music has this supernatural power.
Like a force of nature.
Yeah, think of it this way. If he played a song, even rocks would groove to the melody.
Rocks dancing to music. I mean, that's a concert I'd love to see. But it makes you wonder how someone with that kind of power ends up in this heartbreaking situation. Tell me about Eurydice and their love story.
Well, their love is described as pure and joyous, a connection blessed by nature itself.
It sounds idyllic.
It does. But then tragedy strikes with Eurydice's death.
Oh.
The myth doesn't dwell on how she dies, whether it was a snake bite or something else.
So the cause isn't important?
Not really.
Hmm.
The focus is on the impact. Orpheus is utterly devastated.
I can only imagine losing someone you love that deeply. It must be like your whole world loses its color. I can see why he'd do anything to get her back. But to journey into the underworld, that's not something most mortals would even think about.
It is a fascinating choice. Most people would just, accept their fate. But Orpheus, he defies the natural order. He takes action when faced with the unimaginable. He's driven by love and desperation.
And the underworld is no walk in the park. I mean, the sources paint this chilling picture of his descent.
It's intense. We hear Cerberus howling,
And the mournful sounds of his lyre echoing in the darkness.
and you can almost feel the longing of the spirits trapped there.
It's claustrophobic.
It makes you think about what Orpheus was willing to endure. The weight of sorrow pressing down on him, the sheer terror of navigating this perilous realm. It wasn't just a physical journey. It was an emotional one, too.
But he has his music, his lyre. It's like a shield and a guide. It even calms Cerberus, the fearsome guardian. Does this mean Orpheus's music is more than just entertainment? Is it something deeper, something that transcends the human experience?
That's a really interesting question. It suggests that music possesses a universal language, a power that can influence even the most formidable beings. Remember, Orpheus's music charmed all living things and even inanimate objects. So in the underworld, his music is almost a lifeline, a connection to the world he left behind.
He's a beacon of hope in that sea of despair, and then he comes face to face with Hades and Persephone, the rulers of the underworld. They're surrounded by death and sorrow, yet even they are moved by Orpheus's music.
This is where the true power of Orpheus's music shines. It's not just technical skill, it's raw emotion. It's the depth of his grief, his love for Eurydice poured into every note. Imagine how powerful his music must have been to penetrate the hearts of those who govern death itself.
It's like his music bypasses their defenses, reminding them of love and loss. It connects them on a human level, despite their divine status.
Exactly. And this connection gives Orpheus a chance to do what no mortal has done before. Bring back his beloved from the dead.
But there's a catch, right?
Of course. It is the underworld after all. It can't be that easy.
But how happened?
Well, Hades, despite being moved by Orpheus's plea, lays out a condition for Eurydice's return.
Okay.
It's not just the treacherous journey back to the world of the living daughter. Orpheus is forbidden from looking at Eurydice until they both reach the surface.
That's intense. I mean, just imagine, to walk knowing she's there but not being able to see her. To reassure yourself, it must have been agonizing. Was this a genuine test of love or a cruel game by the gods, knowing how human nature works?
Now that's a question worth exploring further. We can delve into that when we come back for part 2 of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. When we left off, Orpheus was faced with this impossible choice to lead Eurydice out of the underworld, but without looking back.
It's a real test of faith and trust and willpower.
It really makes you think about the human need for certainty, for tangible proof.
I know, right?
Imagine the torment of knowing she's there, but not being able to actually see her.
Yeah, to confirm it with your own eyes.
Exactly. And let's not forget where he is. The underworld, a place of shadows and deception. It's not exactly known for, fostering trust.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The setting itself just amplifies the tension, the psychological tension. Orpheus is surrounded by whispers and illusions and the weight of his own grief. It's like a recipe for doubt.
It really is. So he sets off with Eurydice following behind. The sources tell us he fills the silence with music. maybe finding solace in those familiar melodies. But then doubt starts to creep in.
Oh, no.
Was she really there?
Or was this some cruel trick played by Hades?
I mean, it's understandable, right?
Totally.
He's been through so much. He's bargained with death, navigated a perilous realm, and poured his heart out through music.
The emotional toll must have been just immense.
Immense. So it's almost like he's going through the stages of grief in rapid succession. Denial, bargaining, maybe even anger
At the situation.
at himself,
Yeah.
at the gods. But then there's that moment, that split-second decision that changes everything.
Oh,
The myth describes him nearing the surface. The light of the living world is almost within reach.
so close.
The temptation must have been just overwhelming.
I can't even imagine.
And in a moment of weakness, he turns.
Oh, no. It's heartbreaking.
Just one look, driven by doubt and desperation, and Eurydice is lost to him again.
It's like a punch to the gut.
The sources describe her fading away, a whisper of farewell echoing in the silence.
Like the underworld itself is swallowing her back into its depths.
It's so tragic. And what strikes me is the suddenness of it all.
Yeah.
One moment she's there.
And then gone.
It emphasizes the fragility of hope, how easily it can be shattered.
It really does.
And for Orpheus, it's a double loss. He failed the test, failed to trust, and now he has to live with the consequences. How do you even begin to process such a profound and irreversible loss?
Well, the sources describe Orpheus becoming a living embodiment of grief.
Oh, wow.
He tries to return to the underworld, but the gates are closed to him.
He can't go back?
No. It's like the universe itself is reinforcing the finality of his actions.
So he's trapped in this world, burdened by this grief. What becomes of him? Does he just withdraw from life entirely?
He does, in a sense. He
Yeah.
wanders the earth, rejecting the company of others. His music now a constant lament and outpouring of sorrow.
Yeah.
It's as if he's choosing to live in the shadow of his loss, unable to move on.
His music, once so vibrant and full of life, now reflects his inner turmoil. It makes you wonder if his choice to isolate himself, to embrace grief so fully, is a form of self-punishment.
That's a really fascinating interpretation. There's definitely this sense that he feels unworthy of happiness, that he's carrying the weight of his failure. His music becomes a form of penance, a way to express the depth of his remorse.
Such a tragic outcome. Not just the loss of Eurydice, but the loss of Orpheus himself.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
He loses his purpose, his joy, his connection to the world. But there's another layer to this story, right? This idea that even in tragedy, something beautiful can emerge.
You're talking about the constellation Lyra.
Exactly.
Right. The myth tells us that Zeus, moved by Orpheus' story, placed his lyre among the stars.
It's like his music, even in death, transcends earthly boundaries. It becomes a permanent fixture in the night sky, a testament to his love, his talent, and his enduring connection to Eurydice.
The constellation acts as a reminder of Orpheus' story, but it also transforms his tragedy into something transcendent.
It's like a beacon of hope.
Yeah, a symbol of the enduring power of art and love to transcend even death.
There's this sense of bittersweetness to it all. Even though he's gone, his music continues to resonate, inspiring awe and wonder. It reminds us that stories like music have a way of outliving us, carrying echoes of our experiences across generations.
Absolutely. This is a powerful message about the legacy we leave behind. Orpheus may be gone, but his story and his music continue to touch hearts and minds, inviting us to contemplate the mysteries of love, loss, and the human condition.
And there's still so much more to explore. Join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll discuss the broader implications of Orpheus' story and its enduring legacy in art and culture. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. We've journeyed through the underworld, we experienced the depths of his grief, and we saw how his tragedy transformed into something transcendent with the constellation. Lyra?
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up our exploration, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you about Orpheus' story?
For me, it's the idea that even with divine gifts like Orpheus' talent, we're all vulnerable to human weakness. That moment of doubt, the inability to trust completely, had such devastating consequences.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the choices we make and how even small actions can have a ripple effect.
That's a great point. The myth definitely highlights the complexities of human nature. Orpheus isn't just a hero. He's flawed.
Yeah.
He makes mistakes just like we all do. And it's that makes his story so relatable and thought-provoking.
It really does. And, speaking of choices, Hades' condition for Eurydice's return has always intrigued me. Was it a genuine test of love, a cruel trick by the god of the underworld, or something else entirely? What are your thoughts?
That's a question open to interpretation.
Mm.
And I think that's part of what makes this myth so fascinating. Some scholars see it as a commentary on faith and trust. True love requires unwavering belief even when faced with uncertainty.
Yeah.
Others see it as a metaphor for the challenges we face in life, the obstacles that test our resolve and force us to confront our limitations.
I find myself leaning towards that metaphorical interpretation. Life is full of curveballs, right? Situations that seem impossible to navigate. And it's how we respond to those challenges, how we choose to move forward that shapes our journey.
Exactly. The myth doesn't give us easy answers. It leaves us with questions, dilemmas, and space to contemplate our own beliefs and values. It invites us to think about life and death, love and loss, and the power of the human spirit.
And we can't forget about art. Orpheus's music is more than just entertainment. It's a force that can soothe and inspire and even move the gods. It makes me think about the power of art to transcend boundaries, to connect us to something larger than ourselves, and to help us process emotions.
Absolutely. Throughout history, art has been a source of comfort and a means of expression and a way to understand the world. Orpheus' story reminds us of that power, how music, poetry, storytelling can help us navigate life's complexities and find meaning even in the darkest of times.
It's like his music becomes this bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the dead, allowing him to stay connected to Eurydice even though she's gone. It speaks to the power of love and the ways we keep those we've lost alive in our memories.
It does. And as we conclude our deep dive into the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, I think it's important to recognize the impact this story has had on art and culture. From operas and ballets to paintings and poems, the myth has inspired countless creative interpretations.
It shows the power of storytelling, how a myth from ancient Greece can still resonate with us today, sparking new ideas and conversations. The themes of love loss and the transformative power of art are just as relevant now as they were centuries ago.
And perhaps that's the greatest legacy of Orpheus and Eurydice, a timeless tale that continues to inspire and challenge us to think about the human experience. It's a reminder that beauty and hope can emerge from tragedy, and that stories like music have the power to connect us across time and space.
So, as we leave the underworld behind and return to the surface, we invite you to take the echoes of this myth with you. Let it spark your curiosity and your imagination, and maybe even inspire you to find your own interpretation of this timeless tale. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.